to YouTube. Also, I will start recording now. Welcome, guys, to this live interview with Fabricio Pamplona, CEO of Mindograph, one of our partners for this edition of the Design League. Let me introduce a bit about this session. So this webinar is possible, of course, thanks to Mindograph, that is a startup developing online tools to create graphic content to help you better communicate your science projects. And it will be a very useful tool for the silver medal requirement that implies creating a science infographic of your project, and of course for your presentation. Today's speaker is Fabricio Pamplona, the founder of Mindograph. You will know a bit more about him in some minutes. He has a PhD in pharmacology from the Universidade Federal de Santa Catarina. Sorry about my bad Portuguese. And also a bachelor's in pharmacy. So this session is going to be hosted by Chris. You already know Chris Toledo. So Chris, the floor is yours, and welcome, Fabricio.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Fabricio, for being here today and giving us your time. So today, guys, we're going to talk with Fabricio. He's the CEO and founder of Mindograph, which is a platform that provides tools to build scientific infographics. So I don't want to talk too much about you. I want you to talk about yourself. So I wanted Fabricio, to tell us a little bit about your story. What inspired you to become a scientist and then an entrepreneur?
Okay, let's, fair enough. I should speak about myself. Thanks for the invitation, and thanks for everyone to join this session. It's really a pleasure to be, let's say, recognized in such an audience, and it's really an honor to also contribute with you guys with the tools and resources that we can provide in Mindograph. So telling you a little bit of my story. I joined the faculty of pharmacy, like as an undergrad, with really a lot of curiosity about medicines and how the pharmaceuticals work in the body. That was really my, let's say, my groundstone, my kickoff. And I never envisioned myself as a pharmacist in the pharmacy, as funny as this could sound. I mean, I didn't picture that. I started in the laboratory very soon in the career, like in the very first semester, but it was in the parasitology lab in the hospital. So not really a very bright start, I would say. So very humble, starting from down below, because of the samples. And but then I built up a curiosity about the methods and how things are done and how we get to conclusion about things, and that really gets into science somehow. So I had different experience in chemist and toxicology and parasitology, as I said, but then pharmacology was really what hit my heart, so to speak. So I decided to join the master at that time in 2003, more or less, so almost 20 years ago, because of the endocannabinoid system. So this was kind of the rediscovery of the endocannabinoids. And I had quite some space in that time, because when I went to the conference, everyone was trying to blame cannabinoids for something. And I was trying to understand, let's say, the physiology of the system and see whether or not it could be modulated for good, modulated for any therapeutical application. And I was at that time very successful in modulating mnemonic and cognitive processes. So I decided to continue the PhD in the same topic, and really go to Germany, where all the, let's say, all the heat was going on, all the hot discoveries were happening. And this was fundamental in my career. Like living abroad, living out of your country, it's on itself a really big experience. But for me, it was also important because I was there because of science. I was in the Max Planck Institute of Psychiatry. But during that, I realized that perhaps there were other things going on, because I saw some people in laboratory joining projects that were being carried out together with pharmaceutical companies, and really some people developing like drugs applications and getting out of academia now, doing something more than just publishing papers. And that was really inspirational for me. When I saw, even in the Max Planck Institute, where the scientist was being performing on its best, and some people were still interested in applications, that was a very different, let's say, perspective from what I had in Brazil before going to Germany, because I thought the people that went to the industry were those that that couldn't join the academia, so to speak. That was the second option. And then when I came back to Brazil, all of a sudden, starting something out of academia was my first option and not the second one anymore. So that was when my entrepreneurial career started. This was 2010 when I finished my PhD. So long story after that.
Oh,
we can live out of the academia. We don't die.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to see how other people in other countries see science and how they apply it in different ways. So that's really interesting, that how that sparkled your wills and that shaped your career as well.
Exactly. And you know, Chris, how hard it is to kind of dream with a scientific career in Brazil. So it's not a dream for everyone. So I was very, very glad to see an alternative. And I would say that today is one of my flagships. It's something that I stand for, to say and to motivate people that there are careers, even in Brazil, there are careers out of academia for scientists.
Yes, absolutely. There are so many areas that things come together. And I think that entrepreneurship is one of them with science that is really, really interesting. And that's a little bit why we called you here today. So I wanted to ask you, with all this change from academia to entrepreneurship, what were some challenges you faced in this change? And do you feel like you have gone totally from a scientist to an entrepreneur, or do you still feel like you are a scientist?
I still feel a little bit. I miss the bench. I must admit. So I still publish a few papers. I mean, not every year as before. Like I used to publish 3-5 papers a year during like the peak of my career, of my scientific part of the career. Now I publish once every 2 years, sometimes every year. But I try to still collaborate with colleagues. There's still some nice things going on. I also interact with biotech companies and so on. But the big challenges, I think, or the biggest ones, was that we don't have idea. We don't have an idea on how is the world out there, out of academia. We are not trained by that. We are not used to speak with normal people, and therefore we don't understand our powers. That's I really believe, and there's some evidence coming out supporting that during the PhD or during the graduation, you develop quite a lot of skills which are interesting, special. That not everyone is ready to tackle deep questions as we are. Not everyone is able to communicate as good as we do. And project management, leadership, writing grants. I mean, all these activities, they shape the way we think, and this is useful outside of the academia. So first thing was, I understood that I was very good in managing projects. I was very good in leading teams in a scenario of uncertainty, and this has a lot to do with innovation. When we start to interact with people like in regular companies, we realize that not everyone is comfortable with uncertainty. And that is a skill that is really, really needed in the outside world, particularly when you talk about innovation, when you talk about, really forward-thinking companies. So that's the place for scientists, I think. Working with in places where the questions are hard, the circumstances are uncertain. That's the first thing. But I'd say that, down to earth, the real big challenge I had was because I started a company. The first company I started after the PhD was really close to my comfort zone, and that's very, very normal. It happens very often. So it was a kind of pharmaceutical service trying to understand useful projects or potential projects in the academia that could be transferred to the industry. That was the first company. And when I really find a very, very good project, it was like a semi-synthesis of plant-derived molecules from Brazilian nature. So really, let's say, inspiring, at least for me. And they had 20 different molecules that could act as an anxiolytic and perhaps an hypnotic without giving tolerance. So, if you compare with a benzodiazepine, for instance, it's something that could provide anxiolysis, like reduce anxiety, without needing building up tolerance, without needing bigger dose over time. And then I was very excited discussing this with a director of a well-known pharmaceutical company in Brazil. And he said to me, look, that's not what we want to hear. You need to talk with the marketing guy, and you need to tell what's the headline. Is it good for children? Is it good for old people? What is good for? What are the benefits? We don't want to talk about the mechanisms. It's a beautiful project, but it doesn't matter. Simple like that. And it hurts because we are useful to be passionate about that. It hurts to listen to that. But that was the biggest challenge. So after 1.5 years, I couldn't sell any project, but I learned a lot. So that was the first thing. Mindograph was the third time I tried to start a company.
Right. I was going to ask you just that. Was that challenge one of the things that made you think about Mindograph? You needed to express your scientific project in a different way, and that was a difficulty. So was that one of the reasons why you founded Mindograph?
I think it was. I was that guy, in the lab, spending a lot of hours in PowerPoint. Every laboratory has one of these guys, looking for figures, trying to tweak a little bit what we get in Google Images and all that. And it's painful. We don't find the content. The content is often not scientifically correct. Like you need, let's say, a certain strain of a mouse, and you never find it. And if you find a mouse, then you don't find it in the right position, things like that. So I was very frustrated by the lack of appropriate content for scientific communication for myself. You're right. And then I realized that this could be a pain for other people too. And then the biggest challenge, now talking about really how to start a company, was trying to convince someone to join this idea. And in this case was my current partner. He's a designer. And when I started to talk about this with him, I said, man, no, why should someone pay for that? It's so easy. I said, no, man, this is an opportunity. No, it's not easy. People don't understand how to design, how to express visually. And that's a big tendency in the field. What happened with Google Images will happen eventually with the scientific search engines. It's a natural behavior of human beings. We look for figures. I was very influenced by comics and all this, let's say, this language, because I used to read a lot of comics when I was younger. And that was really my inspiration. I wanted people to read science as they read comics. So that's really the challenge the change I want to make in the world, to make scientists, or to help science to be as popular as comics. Or at least the closer we can get to that, using figures.
That's a great vision. I love that.
Nice.
Okay, so going a little bit about your work in Mindograph, I wanted to tell us a little bit more how it works and how did it come to be, Mindograph?
Mm-hmm. It was a bumpy road, I must say. It started as as a service. So we wanted to kind of understand what are the pains, behind trying to communicate science visually. What are the pains? I mean, where it hurts for the user. And then it started as a service. We tried many times. I mean, we published several graphical abstracts, even a cover of neuroscience, the IBRO journal. It was a paper of myself, and I got the cover. So Mindograph was in charge of illustrating. So it was kind of successfully, but we realized that the process of a scientist explaining to an illustrator or to a designer what to communicate, and this back and forth is really stressful. The scientist when you know something, it's very hard to step on the shoes of someone that doesn't know, and then you try to explain like a cell. It's very simple, right? Like a cell for a scientist. For a designer, it's absolutely not simple. And they ask questions like that. Well, what color should I use for a cell? I mean, we don't know. Cells have no color. I mean, you see it in the microscope. Any color, it's like let's say a convention. It's a way that people kind of decided to illustrate. There's no appropriate color for a cell. And then to teach these things all the time for designers, for illustrators, it's really painful. And I realized that my job was kind of stay in between, like help to translate. I was kind of a translator because I kind of I can think visually. I think very well visually, like put schemes, things like that. And I just wanted someone to illustrate on top of that. But how the whole creative kind of process was was happening inside my head. And one day, a good friend of mine, he requested an illustration, like an infographic. We created a draft, which we thought was very, very nice. And then he print this figure, even print like in paper, sketch everything on top of that, like wrote everything, digitalize again, like scan it again, and send it back to us. First thing, I understood that sometimes our users are not, or at least at that time, like 10 years ago, they were not using the appropriate tools. I mean, they're scanning, using paper, looking for figures in books, and taking pictures or scanning. So they don't have the resources, they don't have the skills, but they know what they want to communicate. So that's the first thing. So if they know, perhaps we could just provide the resources and train a little bit, or create templates, create inspiring, ways of organizing things. And by providing the resources, we could do something that is really cost effective, and also let them express themselves. So that's the sparkle, like the very moment we decided to create a product, instead of being on the service side, as most freelancers. And I think this was really the tipping point, the turning point, because we decided to create a style, like a graphic style that is scientific correct, that anything that you combine will be looking good together because it's all the same style, and will be professional. So the challenge is really how to provide professional tools, like figures that look professional, using vectors, using all the quality of a professional image, but in an interface that is so user-friendly, so intuitive, that even a scientist can use. That was really the idea. And funny enough, I think we hit it. I mean, today I'm very, very confident. Very, I believe a lot in the product, and I think we're close to hitting this objective, starting in 2016, so 5 years ago.
Yes, it's really quick actually for a company, right? Because you've hit success really quickly, and that's something that it's really, to me, regarding the goal of your company and what you want to achieve. So with all this knowledge that you have, and knowing so much about the field and about the area, about scientific area, you can really hit the mark with your product, knowing the pains and knowing what to deliver.
Yeah, this happens very often with founders. When they create products for themselves, we really understand. I mean, wouldn't really understand the market. It's different when you are I don't know, someone with money that want to find an opportunity. We are creating something that we actually need. But you said we found success already. I mean, it depends on what success is, right? I had many moments that I felt like, yes, we got it. And the very first one, I must say, it was 2 weeks after the company really started. And it was the MVP, like the prototype. Because it's really like this, like 2 weeks to put the very first thing online, and then 5 years to develop the market. So the very moment when I realized that it was possible, that we could do something, that is really when I started to believe that there was an opportunity, there was a product that we could really do it. And then comes like the first 1,000 users, and then you start to make some money. You realize that some people are actually paying for that, and then you realize you have users all over the world, and now you're hitting the mark of 500,000 users. So that's really
Wow.
remarkable.
That's amazing. Congratulations on that.
Thanks.
And tell me something. Having the skills to be a scientist is really different. The skills that are needed, right? To be a scientist and to be an entrepreneur. How was that change for you? And how do you feel like, what are the points that connect and what are the points that are different?
It's not totally different. I must say that it's not totally different. The way business are created these days, the way products are tested, it's really similar to how we understand science. I recommend a book for anyone interested on this topic, that is Lean Startup. And then I don't know how many people in the audience know, but they really describe a method of how develop a product and create, let's say, develop the market, create a product in a company out of experimentation. It's really like you have a hypothesis, you create something, you put in the hands of people, then you observe, you take notes, and you iterate. You improve on top of experimentation. When I read that book, I realized that was something I could do. I mean, I was really skilled to that. This plus leading people, plus being able to raise money, plus being able to, as I said, work in an environment of uncertainty and try to, materialize things, try to get them real. That's exactly what we do in science. I mean, we have an idea, and then we narrow it down to something that is testable, something that it's actually, let's say, something is concrete, and that's the part of entrepreneurship that gets closer to science. The parts that don't get close, I must admit that I get people to help me. I mean, you never do it alone. Entrepreneurship is not a single-minded enterprise. It's not for lonely wolves, as we like to think. Some people say that the first client you need to convince is your partner. You need a partner. People don't trust in solo founders, as we say. A solo founder with a very crazy idea maybe not good enough to really get there real, because it's a hell of work to get a company off the ground. So it's way better to do with 2 or 3 people, and then it becomes similar to science again. I mean, science is a social construction. You never do a very big, audacious project alone. I mean, it doesn't work like that. I find it very similar. It's an environment where I feel comfortable, I must say.
Yes, absolutely. I think that mainly in the part where you're trying to validate your project, or your company as a whole, is really similar to how we do that in science. And I think that scientists get away with it very well because of their background, because they know that they need to change like one variable at a time, and that they need to document everything, and then they need to iterate it. So I think that we scientists can be really good entrepreneurs.
I agree. The only thing that we mess up a little bit is that we are too attached to the details. And sometimes you need to get rid of the details and just do the one thing that matters, the one thing that will move you forward one step. and then the other, and then the other. If you try to characterize too much or pay too much attention to the details, you don't move. And not moving, it's really death for a startup.
I agree 100%. And tell me, Fabricio, you are also working on other entrepreneurial projects, right? Tell us a little bit about that.
That's true. That's true. I have many interests, and that's let's say one of the byproducts of not leaving, let's say, the scientific activities as a whole. And I was really involved in the beginning of the cannabinoid market here in South America, in Brazil, and in Latin America in general. So more or less, this was interesting because the timeline is more or less the same as Mindograph. So I was with one step in each boat, like building the cannabis market in Brazil, but also starting Mindograph. So you can imagine how many hours my day used to have. So it was tough, but today I'm very well positioned as a reference for the cannabis market in Brazil as well. And I'm involved in a business of pharmacogenetics. Of course, I don't run the business, but I help to shape the product. I'm also involved in a portal, like a web commerce of cannabinoids, like several different products. And I serve as a mentor of at least 3 biotechs, even one of them in synthetic biology. We just had the first genetic engineer organisms to produce CBD in Brazil, in USP. I don't know if the Brazilian teams know this story, that the Brazilian teams that are participating, but it's a team, it's a group from USP. I used to be a mentor, and then I became an angel investor because I believe in this idea, particularly in Brazil, where cannabis is still forbidden and we cannot grow the plant. And then I think that using synthetic biology as a source, for industrial production of cannabinoids, it's a way. And also 2 others in immunology. Almost nothing to do with what I know as a scientist, but everything that I lived so far positioned me well to help other scientists to cross the bridge by themselves. I mean, I really became this reference in Brazil of for people that want to leave the academia with good ideas and perhaps starting companies. So these 2 biotechs in immunology. One is on the production of antibodies, and the second one is on synthetic viruses. So it was really a coincidence, but I'm kind of close to the iGEM context.
Yes, absolutely. And it's really interesting to see how you can spread your reach with different areas, but still having a connection with all of them. And especially with Synbio being one of them, it's amazing. So congrats on that as well.
Yeah, I question myself a lot because, I mean, the one thing that we say in entrepreneurship, like the chapter 1 of the book, is that you should not waste energy. I mean, you should focus on what you got to do. And then having a hell of other interests. I mean, of course, Mindograph is my main activity, like more than 50% of my time. But I do have other interests, and I like to interact with people and help take good ideas off the ground, particularly off the university. That's really my flag, like my purpose. And then I question myself a lot about that. I mean, I'm wasting time, wasting energy, and should I focus in just one thing, the one thing that will make me happy and perhaps more successful? And then I realized that my purpose was more than any of these companies. Like my purpose, my personal purpose, my reason to wake up every day was to connect people with science. Really get science off the bench, off the academia, into the market, and touch people. And the opposite as well, like get people which are involved with scientists and help them connect with the real world. So I'm kind of this bridge. And when I realized that this is my purpose, everything made sense. I mean, it makes sense to teach in the university, teach entrepreneurship in the university. It makes sense to talk with other scientists that want to become entrepreneurs. It makes sense to be involved in and help other business, it makes sense to help people communicate science, because science communication really kind of bridge this gap of understanding and connect science with people. When I realized that, it was in a way calming, because I was very stressful about that. I mean, am I losing my life and doing everything wrong because I'm doing too many things? And now I realize there is a unity, and it's called Fabricio. It's me. I mean, I just know to be like this.
Yes, to understand our purpose is really interesting and enlightening as well. So I think I do feel the same way as you do. I'm also a scientist who's gone to the entrepreneurial area. So I fully understand you when you say you are the bridge between both worlds, and that you want to get scientists to understand more of the market and how to bring their technologies as a product, right? So that's really interesting.
I never forget one discussion I had with my mentor in Max Planck. This was back in 2007. We had CBD, CBD and PTSD patients. And that was exactly what I did in the master, like trying to modulate the endocannabinoid system to facilitate memory extinction. I mean, something that is relevant for the PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And then I said to him, look, when you're going to try in people, when you're going to try, to see if this actually work, because we are doing the animal work. And he mentioned to me, no, that works. That is a work for other people. That is a work for, the others that will come. We'll stay characterizing in animals because there are so many things to understand. And at that time, although I admired him, I still admired the mentor. I realized that I was a different type of people. I'm the type of person that discovers something and want to move it forward. I want to take it forward. And it was, as I said, enlightening when you realize who you are, and then you become a different animal.
Absolutely. I'm going to, before going to the questions of the public, Fabricio, I wanted to ask you something that's a little more philosophical. So I wanted to ask you, what is something that sounds like science fiction, but it's closer than we can imagine?
Sounds like science fiction, but it's closer than we can imagine.
Yeah.
That's a very, very easy one right now. Viruses. I mean, we don't see, we don't smell, a lot of people don't think they really exist. I mean, we are seeing this anti-vax movement, and they can stop the world. I mean, we can see it very, very clearly. Things that don't exist can stop the world. Look, sounds like science fiction, but we are actually living it right now.
Yes, absolutely. You're so right.
And then when you realize that we are already able to edit, some parts of something that doesn't exist and teach our body how to react, this like Pfizer vaccine, which was, by the way, the one I took. I mean, this is unbelievable. We can use synthetic biology to teach our body how to react to the environment. I mean, it's so empowering. I believe a lot on this approach, and on making ourselves, let's say, better humans, more adapted to the world by intent. This is really speeding up evolution.
I think so too, in a good way. And I think that if we use our tools correctly, we can really improve quality of life of people, and also the span of life. So it's really interesting how we can use our intelligence to modulate how evolution works, really.
Exactly. Yeah. A lot of people are afraid of technology. And I always tell them that any technology, looks weird in the beginning. This is strange, it's uncomfortable. And we just need to get used to the idea and to the effects. And it's never so, let's say, overwhelming as people think in the beginning. We get used to so many bad things. Let's get used to this as well. And flying cars, of course.
Sure. Now I'm going to see, well, guys, you guys that are seeing us and watching, accompanying us, If you have any questions, please feel free to either write it on the comments on the chat or speak up. So unmute your microphone and speak for yourself. And I'm going to wait a little bit for some questions, but meanwhile, I wanted to ask you, have you iterated the Mindograph business model? You were saying a little bit about changing from a
service to product.
Yeah, to a product. How was that?
As I mentioned to you, was an insight that we had when we realized that the scientists already knew what they want to communicate. They just didn't have the resources. And then, of course, we created, we knew that illustrations were important, but what else? I mean, what comes around illustrations? And then we realized that the goal was to make something that looks professional, but very simple to use. So that was, let's say, the north star of the whole design process. And then we started to create a few features around the whole experience of putting illustrations together, just drag and drop illustrations. But the hard thing, and we never think about that, is to understand how people want to pay and if they want to pay. I mean, one thing is to like something. The other thing is to like to the point that you pay. And then we realized, I mean, that subscription was a nice model, that it should be cost effective. I mean, it's $15 per month. Of course, in Latin America, the dollar is very high at the moment, but still, it's relatively well priced. And I think that one important insight we had, and I had the win-win kind of circumstance in mind, was the idea that anyone could request new illustrations for the platform, and we'll do it in a customized way, but we'll share with everyone else. So the idea is, then we create content that is meaningful. We don't create anything randomly. We create meaningful content, but we share with everyone. So we can reduce the cost, make the product cheap, but still deliver customized illustrations. I think that's has a kind of a magic in it on itself. It was a nice day when we thought about this. It's part of the success.
Yeah, it sure is.
It's the idea of abundance.
Yes.
This also influenced me a lot during this process.
That's awesome. We have a question from Daniel Osorio. He says, scientific divulgation began as master's conference. Today it is done through videos, posters, and others. What do you think will be the main way of scientific divulgation in the future?
That's a good question. I really like the podcasts. I think this is something that is picking up. Also, it's really interesting how Twitter is reacting, like a lot of people interacting and putting just chunks of, let's say, the discoveries very quickly in the Twitter. It's a way of, let's say, open science. No, they don't call it like that, but I think it is. And videos, of course, are a tendency. I think that the whole thing that we see, let's say, in the real world, the way we interact, will come to science. It just takes more time. I mean, science is really slow to change, slow to adopt new technology, new formats. We're still, reading PDFs, which it's like a 19th century format. I think that videos, of course, infographics, of course, is my bet. Like images are already there, but still not used properly. For this century, I think it's still these formats. But I like the way that we are more openly, let's say, exchanging information before the publications. I think this is the future. Talk more open, like in Twitter, in podcasts, more informally. And I don't believe in restricting information anymore. I think this is totally outdated. The future is, there are many bright ideas out there. Having an idea is nothing. Execution is all.
Exactly. Yes, you're totally right with that. People always say like, oh, I have an idea and I'm not going to tell anyone about it. But they're so wrong, because if you keep it to yourself, it's never going to become true, right?
Yeah. I realized very soon in the career that science is a social construction. So you gotta talk to people. Otherwise, it doesn't become real, as you said. The biggest success in my scientific career was a PNAS paper. I helped to discover a new mechanism in the endocannabinoid system. That was really something nice. And it just happened because I took my backpack and really knocked on the door of the researchers in Germany, then in France. Then I interact with other people in laboratories and started to really a journey, I must say. I didn't have the resources. My laboratory didn't have the resources to really pursue that discovery, and I had to knock on doors and talk with people. Otherwise, it wouldn't become true.
Yes. Yes, collaboration is really, really important, both in science and entrepreneurship, in any kind of field, actually.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you, what would be your advice for teams to communicate their projects better?
That's a very good one. First thing, you need to not work in the computer. There's a lot of work that happens before you sit on the computer. So I normally see, even in slides, like in presentations of conference professors, etc., they put way too many information, way too much in any slide. That's why, it's because they are proud of everything they conquer. Let's say every experiment that was successful. With an asterisk and p below 0.01, but people don't need to look at everything you did. First thing is you need to think, what's the story? The very same thing that the marketing director asked me. What do you want to say? That's the first thing. If you don't say what is the message, what is the story, don't sit in front of the computer to create a graphical abstract or a figure. So we have a blog post about that. So first thing, understand what is the conclusion. What do you want to say? Then second thing, understand what is the narrative. You get from point A to point B, and then you conclude C. You need to have it very, very clear in your mind. Then the third thing, you think how you should illustrate that. People normally go to C, like to illustrate, before having a certainty or before having a clear picture for what they want to say. That's when we see those slides with a lot of figures, a lot of data, but they don't tell anything. People are lost. So first thing, work even before sitting in front of the computer. I like to do really manual things like scratching even in the paper before, and of course in front of the computer, mind mapping helps a lot. Like organize the ideas before. Don't see it to illustrate before having organized ideas. That's my main advice.
Yeah, that's a great advice. I think that's something that people struggle, not only students, but throughout life, because we sometimes are so, so fixed on the idea that like I have to do a presentation and that's what I need to do, that they sometimes forget what's the context and what do you want to express. So that's really a great advice.
Yeah, I already could make almost 100 slides in a single day. After spending almost 1 week thinking about what I wanted to say and really, planning everything, every slide. Then we sit, you are very, very productive. But if you sit, to create a presentation, sometimes it takes 3 days because you don't know what you want to say. It's simple. Yes. It's simple like that.
I've been there.
And,
we have a question from
sorry, but one exercise that I think it's really helpful is thinking tweets. What will be the Twitter? What will be the Twitter? If you need to communicate there, what's the headline? Tell in 146 characters. And I made this exercise with my PhD thesis, and it was like the fat of the cannabis help protect the brain. That's the story. The whole thesis, the whole book. Fat of the cannabis help protect the brain. That's it.
Perfect.
And then it's clear.
And it's good that you can communicate that to people that aren't scientists and that they will understand. So that's a great advice.
Exactly.
We have a question from Eric. He says, hello, these days I have been thinking a lot of things related to solve problems with synthetic biology. But I realize I don't know how to start. And my question is, which is the first step you think people need to take to become an idea to a real project?
That's a very hard one. First thing, you guys have the challenge of using synthetic biology. So you already have the solution. You need to find a problem that fits the solution. That's normally the way scientists think. I mean, we need to think this way. We normally already have the solutions. We normally already know what we want to do, but that's not the proper way to find very good problems. Sorry. The best way is really to interact with people and to understand where it hurts. I mean, what they need. I do believe that a lot of problems, let's say in the kind of microorganisms realm, so to speak, like when it comes to pathologies, bacteria, like virus, antibodies, all this may benefit from synthetic biology, but that's just one thing. Environmental applications, there are plenty. Plenty of things that you can do. Other things, quality of food. I mean, a lot of people starve because the food are not distributed well. If you look at the problems like this, it's not what amino acid should I change, it's what people need. People need to be fed in place which are far away from the production sites. What are the problems during this journey? There are insects, there are temperature, there are microorganisms, there are the kind of the plastics. There are different strategies that you can use to reach this goal. But first you need to understand the macro and follow the journey. That's how we find a good problem. If you're stuck in the solution and the details again, you won't find a very good problem. I mean, you probably find a project, you find a grant, you find something that you advance your career scientifically, but it's in the real world you won't change many things. You need to step out and see the big picture before. That's I mean, I know it doesn't answer, but that's the process I will recommend. If you're passionate about environment, then think about these 2 or 3 things in environment that matters for you and try to see it in the real world. First thing, you face a lot of things that you never thought before. Observe people. That's the first thing.
Yeah, in entrepreneurship, we say a lot to fall in love with the problem and not with the solution, right? So you need to sometimes give a step back and look at the problem and understand what's the pain that people are feeling, and then come up with the solution and try to be open to different kinds of solutions.
Exactly. And I must say that even before Mindograph, having been in contact with the design mindset is what changed my career, I mean, forever. When I started to realize that I was thinking as a scientist, I was too focusing too much on the solutions, as we just said. And then there were other approaches to, find innovative products and services and so on. When I realized that, my whole mind and career twisted. So it was the design fault that I made this path. I realize you also have this kind of training, right?
Yes, I do.
It makes a lot of difference. I almost went to Stanford to do the bio design. Perhaps,
really?
Yeah, perhaps someday I will do. It seems to be a really nice training, nice course.
Yes, I also envision it and think like, oh, that would be something great to do someday.
Yeah, I didn't do because I realized that to be a real interpreter, you don't learn it in the university. You don't learn in the class. You need to go to the real world. Then instead of going to the biodesign, I decided to found Mindograph. It was really like that. I was in doubt. Either go to Stanford or try to create a startup, another startup, but a new one. And that was when I got my MBA on real life.
That's great. So Fabricio, to wrap up, I wanted to ask you to explain for us what will be the challenge that Mindograph will put for the iGEM participants this year. Tell us a little bit about it.
Nice. So yeah, first thing, of course, you'll be trained. We'll host a workshop on how to design, how to get new ideas, find narratives, and then illustrate it. We'll provide the tools, we'll provide the training, and then the challenge will be to represent the whole project and for sure the impact of the project. Don't forget that in an infographic. Easier said than done, but as I said, one figure should tell the whole story. It's not a video, it's not like 10 slides, it's one figure. And you can always find a way to explain like the whole thing. What's the problem? What's your solution? What's the impact? These are the three things that matter in one figure. And I and other designers in the Mindograph team will evaluate and give a prize to the best infographic of iGEM. So all the teams will receive already received one account to use during the iGEM Design League, but the champion will also receive one account for free for 1 year. So that's the whole deal. Go for it.
Yeah, that's a great prize. I wanna try that as well. I wanna participate to maybe win.
Nice. Good luck.
Thanks. So to wrap up, the last question, I wanted to ask you, what do you think is the importance of biology and synthetic biology for the world? How do you envision this?
We already said that it's to improve evolution, to speed up things in the way that makes life better for the human beings, life better for the humanity. The environment, the world is changing way too fast for us to handle that. We need to speed it up as well with synthetic biology. So it's really like improving biology, improving ourselves to be able to handle the outside world. That's how I see it. Superhuman.
That's a great vision. Exactly.
You'll be there. In my opinion, the Olympic Games, like very soon, will be. I mean, we will have the official Olympic Games, but we have an alternative Olympic Games, perhaps the one for originally for handicapped people, where doping and using of external resources will be allowed. I don't know if you remember, but 2012, Pistorius with the prosthetics, he could run faster than normal human beings.
Yeah.
And he was stopped, by like the rules. My opinion is that these rules like will really get down like in 10, 20 years, and we'll have an Olympics of superhumans very soon. It'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, so we will be looking forward to that. So Fabricio, it was a really pleasure talking to you today. I think people really liked the interaction. Someone on the chat asked you for your contact, so if you could leave that on the chat, please. Sure. Either your LinkedIn or your email, any way you want it.
It's very easy. Like you'll find me in any media, like Fabricio Pamplona. And Instagram, I couldn't get Fabricio Pamplona because it was used already, so it's F Pamplona. And all my emails are my name and surname at mindograph.com or at gmail.com. Always Fabricio Pamplona. So easy to find. And really feel free to interact with me. I answer all the emails, all the messages. Sometimes it takes a while, but I love to hear the stories and help people with crazy ideas.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much again. It was great talking to you. And Daniel, if you want to say a few words.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Fabricio. Muito obrigado. It was a great interview. So for the teams, please go to the site, and you already have the instructions to start using your accounts, start exploring this during the weekend or for next week. And as Fabricio mentioned, we will have this workshop with Mindgraph's team next week. I think it's on 24th or 25th.
24, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, we need to define the final date. We will let you know. And prepare your questions. And well, thanks again.
And one important thing I forgot to mention, but the subscription of Mindograph includes the possibility to request illustrations. So if the teams need very specific illustrations for the project, feel free to ask. You know, all the services, everything included in Mindograph is available to you guys. So feel free, anything. We get all sort of weird requests, like a very specific bird species in a given position. We draw anything. So feel free to ask. Thank you guys for the opportunity, for the invitation. It was really great. Thank you, Chris, for all the nice interview, nice chatting, and I feel really close to you guys already. I'm looking forward to see, you know, all the projects and how the teams will develop. And good luck for all the teams involved.
Thank you. We're also super excited to see what can they design with biology. Thanks, Chris. Well, have a nice weekend.